Searle. Boyd. Now lands with the Blues. Closey. Mungs it forward. Tough one to mark.
The scores there.
Play on. Play on.
He's a bit uncertain back there. Kemp gets around his man eventually. Left foot ball is good. Anderson, huge game last week by Noah. Who's dominating. Elects to go to the outside to Kemp at ground level. David King, Saturday afternoon football. So Doug Nichols round. It was the Blues by 9 at quarter time. It's been whittled back to a 6-point margin by the Suns, who are having a good patch. Now the Suns. He set up Long, who got them back in it in the second term. Looked for a free, didn't get it. The Blues to going. He's involved there with Anderson. The two prime movers. Yeah. Berry waited for the hand pass, didn't come his way. Keep it on. Johnston down. Holman needs to compete.
It's great by Kemp. Got off the coast to Cerra.
Sexton screws around on the right. Pocius is outmarked. Good confident play. The Blues defence has held up well. Now Kemp worked that really well to Cripps.
Workman-like, he's back to his running best, and that wasn't a question last week, Kingy. He was still trying too hard, but in Michael Voss's words, probably over-tried.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Blue Abroad show here on the Blue Abroad YouTube channel. We're actually also live on Facebook tonight. It is Monday, the 21st of October, 2024. We started off with some Brodie Kemp highlights just to get around the young fella, but got to get around Joe Adamo from the Almost Blues Brothers. Hello, mate.
Good to be back. How are you?
Where you been, mate? You've been
Blue
abroad.
Yeah, genuinely abroad, but no, just enjoying the off season. It's been pretty hectic, but good to be back. Good to be back.
You've spent some time in the UK. Went to an Arsenal match I saw.
Went to a few. Yeah, no, it's been a very, very big year so far. We're not done yet, but yes, the fiance is living in London still, so yeah, it's I've been back and forth a lot as we were talking pre-show, and I'm tired. I'm very tired. So this off season has come at the right time just to get some well-earned rest. But good to be here tonight. First one I've done for first time I've spoken about the Blues since the elimination final. First time I've done one of these for at least 3 months, I reckon 4 months. So it's good.
What are you feeling since the elimination final? What's been your experience?
I feel like we're going to go backwards next year, just off the top. I might be the only one in that camp, but I don't know. There's no confidence at all. There's just none. And I like the off-season moves, I do, but I don't think they're short-term moves, which is a good thing. But there's a lot of the culture that has potentially been gutted from the club. A lot of players that have been on the list for a long time, and not going to be around the club. And you just, I don't know, even in a working environment, when you lose certain people from that environment, it can gut you a bit. So that's how I've been feeling since the elimination final, just on those thoughts, I guess, just pondering that. And I'm comfortable if we go backwards, but we've just got to stick fat. Like, it's a process, right? You can't throw the toys out the cot and not see the 5-year plan through. That's where my head's at the moment. I was very disappointed with the year, very disappointed, obviously, without it all finished. But which is funny to say considering we made finals. But yeah, it's a bit confusing as a Carlton supporter at the moment.
Mate, the standards are high. I like it. I reckon 4 years ago, if we're playing finals, we're happy. And now we scraped in, fair, but whatever, 13 wins. And it wasn't just disappointing, it was bitterly disappointing. So I think that goes to show where we're at with our mentality.
Yeah, I mean, you're always happy to play finals, but when you get there and you don't even give a yelp, it's like, what are we doing here, boys? Well, this is just a waste of time for everyone. So, yeah, very, very, very disappointing. But I don't know. I just think next year's going to be very interesting. I'm not excited to see us come back at all just yet. Like, I'm not even close to thinking about opening round one, but. It's once it all kicks off, it's just going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. I'm not, I'm not overly confident.
Mate, they burnt us. They burnt you. They burnt me. One of the best things ever was Actually, I've had a couple of good moments with you against Geelong. Round 2, 2023, I think.
Yeah,
we
it was
beat them.
last. Yep.
Was that last year? Round 2,
Yeah.
maybe? And you were like waving the scarf, and I was like, "Fuck
Was it?
yeah!" Was
Yeah.
that last year? Yeah.
Last year, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they won the flag the year
Yeah.
prior. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Geelong this year, round 15. That was
Yep. Back to the bench, just using that for free content and whatnot. It's good. It's good. We're just providing other content creators with content on Blue Broad. It's nice.
mate, you give more value to this world than what they take from you. It's always a good thing.
That is 100% true. 100%. Yeah.
So we're going to go through what happened over the last 7 days. So obviously recapping trade period, and given we haven't really, no one's heard from you. No one's heard you speak Carlton at all. So this is going to be a fresh perspective. So we're going to go through trade period, just the sort of the deals towards the end. We are then going to talk a little bit more about, list management versus coach. Not so much around should Dan Houston have been at Carlton, but just an open conversation around that and where we've come from. We'll talk a little bit about, I did a video today on the Adam Cerra deal. Maybe we can quickly look back on that and reflect. We'll touch on the GWS science situation, and I think a broader issue within the AFL and society, and have a bit of an uncomfortable conversation, and then we'll go from there. How's that sound?
Let's do it.
All right. So firstly, thanks to Cannoleria, who sponsor the Blue Abroad show all the way through to the last week in December. So trade period, we knew always was gone. We knew that. I might get your thoughts on that shortly. But I want to start with Kennedy. Kennedy was the last deal done on the day.
Kennedy's done. Kennedy's done.
We'll wait for the details. According to,
We're just going to go with audio here with Riley Beveridge. If you can still hear me, yeah, Riley.
Have you got me?
Yes, we've got you.
Yeah. So Matt Kennedy has gone to the Western Bulldogs for pick 38, but Brodie Kemp stays at Carlton, where he's contracted next year. St Kilda ultimately couldn't find an offer good enough for Brodie Kemp.
So 38 for Kennedy. It's about. It seems
That's about right. Yeah, and I really like it for the Western Bulldogs. I think it's an upgrade on McRae. I think it gives them some flexibility, some hardness. He won best clubman at Carlton this year, finished top 10 in their best, and Ferris was an important player for them. So there's no doubt Carlton have lost some depth. They will get some star quality in, and they're invested in the draft, which they said from day one they wanted to be, and they've followed through with that. Yes, it's come at the expense of their depth, and the Western Bulldogs have clearly lost some depth as well, but all those players they had fallen out of love with, so Kennedy comes in, and that is a big win. And also for the Western Bulldogs, the win for them is pick 25 for Caleb Daniel.
So, Joe, what were your thoughts on, I guess, Kennedy, and then trade period as a whole? You did touch on it earlier just then.
Yeah, all right, we'll start with Kennedy. So I think it was fair value. I think 38 is about right for a player that didn't really have a defined role in the team at the end of the day, and was told he could explore his options. On that, you can't tell me he's a required player. I don't care what anyone says. The club is that is not the messaging that came out of the club. I don't care who asked for the opportunity to explore options. As a football club, if he is truly a required player and he's contracted, you don't allow him to look for options and you don't entertain a trade. So clearly he was never a required player. So pick 38, I think we actually did pretty well with in the end. I think that's fair value for that scenario. But it's disappointing to see him go. I think we underutilized him. He's a very, very handy midfielder, very, very handy. And we've seen that in spades from Chugger along the way, and he'll be missed. If a few of those midfielders go down, that is one that we are absolutely going to feel next year. So that's a watch and wait, obviously. And then always, I don't know. Initially, I kind of thought, all right, well, yeah, if he's not hitting certain KPIs, or if he's asking for a little bit too much money, or we're trying to, balance the books for signing Weeders and TDK and long-term deals and whatnot, then sure, it makes sense. But at the end of the day, he's kicked the third most goals since 2020 on our list, behind Harry and Charlie. I think he's kicked over 100, and I saw the stat today. It was about 110 maybe, and he's kicked 60 in the last 2 years, 33 this season from memory. It's not easy to replace, man. Like it's ballsy from the club. Obviously, something had to give. This list it's clearly only going to take us so far, but they're two players that I would have thought were almost better than depth at this stage for where we're at. So it's going to be interesting to see how we can make up that 30-goal deficit next year, who they are trusting in to do that job, because clearly they've got a player or two in mind that they think is going to take the leap, and whether or not those players can take the leap. I think overall with trade period, being able to shuffle up the board to pick 3, it's a win. It's still an A in my books for Nick Austin. Anytime you can get a top 3 pick, especially in a draft that's this good at the top end, you can only walk away happy from that trade period. But got to nail the pick now. Got to make sure you get the right kid.
It's interesting with Owies. So I've noticed the fan sentiment over the last 2 years. Really interesting. So last year, it was pretty heavy in the preseason. Why are we getting games into Owies? Let's get games into Durden and Motlop. That was also the theme this year. At the end of the day, Motlop stubs his toe after a full preseason, and then he stubs his toe in the Melbourne practice match. He's out, he's back, hamstring. He's out, he's back, hamstring. Just one of those years, I think, for Motlop. It just didn't click. Durden, not dissimilar. Hamstring, shoulder, came back, played with it, hung on. Just couldn't get anywhere near full fitness or continuity. And always, to his full credit, capitalized on that, kicked his 33 this year. And then he's part of a deal that gets us pick 3. So we had 12. We didn't have 14. We trade a future first and a future second for pick 4.
Yeah, but I think we got a future second back from Brisbane. So I think net what we lost was 12, a future first, and our second rounder this year potentially, or something like that. I did the math on it the other day.
Yeah, but the point I'm sort of trying to make is that 12 future first always gets us pick 3. I had Jono Baruch on last week, and I'm sure you'll be the same when I ask you this. When's the last time we played finals and got pick 3?
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's the biggest win out of this is we're getting a very, very talented kid, especially in this draft, coming to an environment and into a football side that actually has premiership aspirations, or at the very least finals aspirations. Like that's never happened in my lifetime that I've seen. So that is a massive positive, massive.
Yeah, so I'm curious and I'm excited to see how that plays out. And I think as it stands right now, it's like, oh, well, we've lost Owies, we've lost Kennedy, and no one can see the replacements. No one can visualize that player that's coming in, or 2 players that are coming in to wear the Guernsey, and they haven't seen them play. I just get this feeling that once pick 3 is playing football next year, we'll quickly forget about what's happened this year. And because I thought we were more attached to Paddy Dow, for example, and that sort of played out, or Liam Stocker, and that sort of played out. There is always that fear that, oh, you're losing these highly touted players, and what if they go to another club and become superstars? And I actually think there's nothing wrong with that, and that's what makes Carlton fans unique, is we are passionate about our club and we love the club, and because of that we get attached to our players, and we love them like they are our own family. So I love the ruthlessness of what we're doing finally, but I also understand why people are attached.
Yeah, I don't think I'm so much attached to the players themselves, like as people or whatever these days. I think I used to idolize. I'm talking 5-6 years ago. I used to idolize certain types and never wanted them to leave the club. Didn't care, didn't want to hear about it. You got to make calls. It's just whether or not these are the right calls to make on the list. I think there were a few others that I would have had in the gun first. But clearly the club is backing in Rob Innes to come in and make a massive impact from a strength and conditioning and fitness perspective straight away, so that we don't have to rely on that depth as much as what we saw this year in particular. And clearly the club is backing in the natural progression of a few of these types, especially up forward, to be able to do the job and fill those holes that are now left by Owies and Kennedy, who played big roles at times this year. Like these weren't just players that were like top 30, 35. Like these were best 23 for the majority of the year.
Who comes to mind when you think of the always role / position in the team's replacement?
I actually don't think it's a small. I think it's Kemp. I think it's a Kemp or a Moya. Obviously Silvani's coming back, but there's been reports that maybe we'll trial him down back. So who knows what that looks like. But I think we saw enough from Kemp to play as third foil, to then relieve a little bit of pressure off Charlie and Harry as an aerial threat. I think if he does play that third tall or that hybrid tall role next year up forward, and he gives us 20, then that's your solution. Otherwise, an Ashton Moya, potentially he plays 15 games next year, maybe starts to really find some form in the back half of the year and make some impact. He looked good in the limited time that we saw him, but he likes to take a moment, I'll tell you. So we've got some talent there. It's just whether or not they're ready to take the leap. And I hope they are. I really do, because we're going to need them to if we're going to impact next year. Because the thing that, I don't know, as a Carlton supporter now versus 5-6 years ago, what I've learned, around us now are teams that get marginally better every year. And those margins only have to be this much to fall so far behind. So if we're not creeping this much, essentially, with those players stepping up and giving that extra 5 or 10%, we're going to fall. We're just going to fall so far back in the pack short term. So, like I said, it's going to be interesting. I want to see who wants to take it, because there's opportunity there now for someone to really step up and take it.
Yeah. See, my first thought did go to the young ones. Durds, Motlop, Ashton Moya. We want to see more of him. Maybe Jack Silvani. Maybe Brodie Kemp. And in a really bizarre twist of events, Zach Williams gets forgotten about, probably because we're used to him as a halfback flanker. But he played the 11 games this year as a forward and still floated back in some of those games. I do believe a fit Zach Williams, who played 18 games this year, I do believe if he has a full preseason in the forward line, he can provide a point of difference there. So that's sort of where my mind went to. Look, we'll see. It puts the pressure on the kids to grow, because Motlop and Durden are now entering years, 4 and 5? Ashton, well, everyone wants to see Ashton playing football.
Yep, absolutely.
Everyone, wants Fogarty in that forward line, because we know what he does for the group. So there's a couple there already. Harry and Charlie are pretty much locks. I think Cottrell, most people like him on that half forward flank.
As long as he can stay fit. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sam Doherty was scheduled to play half forward / mid. So it's going to be interesting. We need to evolve. There's going to be some sort of a shake-up. So We'll see how that one plays out. Then there were 2 sliding doors moments that I want to touch on from the trade period. The first one was Kemp. So this one kind of came out of nowhere. I'm going to play this video, and this is these are direct quotes from Kemp's manager. And there is a little bit in there about Matt Owies, but it starts with Kemp, goes to Owies, then goes back to Kemp. So I'll just open up the chat with this.
With Matt Bain from TGI Sport. Matt, you've got a fair bit on your plate today. Brodie Kemp is a name that has emerged quite late. St Kilda is coming for him. He is contracted at Carlton. How are conversations going between the two clubs?
Not too bad. I'm about to find out. So, Kempy's mature enough to know that both clubs are having a conversation about him. So he might have a decision to make at some point, but at the moment he doesn't. So
this has emerged quite late. Is he comfortable to stay, or would he prefer to go?
I think he's comfortable to stay. Yeah, definitely. He loves the footy club. So St Kilda came late, and I've asked the question. So I said to Carlton, if you really want to do it, come to us and we can have a conversation. But at the moment, he's Carlton.
Speaking of players that played for Carlton this year, Matt Owies was one of them. He's had a stressful few weeks, finally a resolution. How is he? He must be relieved that he's finally found a new home. He's got that 3-year deal at West Coast.
Yeah, he is. He's very relieved. I think for him, going throughout the year without a contract offer from the club was tough. So especially putting some good numbers on the board, and as you probably heard from him the last few days, that he loves Carlton, the footy club. So for him, it was a bit of a sad time to say goodbye, but he's got a really good opportunity now to go over to West and have a really good crack at it and extend his playing future.
Cal, over to you.
Well, just interested in what you do, Matt, in terms of the Brodie Kemp decision, because what's been the sell from the St Kilda Footy Club in terms of position. We know he can go both ends of the ground. Where is it that they like him as a player?
Yeah, I think it is more that probably that third tall back. So, but obviously there's an interest there that he can, obviously a bit of a swing man. So we've seen him go forward for Carlton at the end of the year. So yeah, that was probably more the sell, that there's probably some opportunities there for him. But again, it probably goes back to Stephen Silvani's days, and he really liked him. It's probably more so them losing Josh Battle and seeing that they need to replace him. And yeah, they think there's a really good, clear opportunity for him there. But, and I said to you before that Kempy really enjoys being at Carlton.
Were you shocked at Kemp being in discussions? Like, what was your thoughts when you saw the news come to light?
Wasn't shocked. It made sense straight away because on that Josh Battle point, right? So the Saints were clearly after that hybrid defender. Kemp put together a solid enough year, but never really cemented his spot at the end of the day down back. And he's been in and out of the side for the last 2 years. So it didn't shock me, but I was never really worried. Like, I didn't think it was ever going to eventuate. He's contracted. They would have had to have stumped up more than what Silvani would have wanted to cough up. So it never worried me when the conversation came up. But, you know, this is what happens when you start winning games and you become a better football club. We're not a great football club by any means, but we're a better football club than what we were a few years back. We've got good talent on our list. The club's going to come for you, know, and that's where it's at. We were lucky he was contracted. I think that's the short end of it at the end of the day.
What you said there is exactly what hit me. I was like, wow, like, I didn't think he had a bad year. I didn't think he had a, you know, exceptionally great year, but I didn't think he had a bad year. I thought it was a solid year, another year of a building block for his entire career. And even that, he was able to show that he could go forward and kick some goals. And it's like turning a new page with the mentality of the club. And, you know, there's 17 players out of contract next year. There's still a couple that are out of contract this year, but there's 17 for next year that come out of contract. And just feel like it shows opportunity is there for a couple of them that need to, that want to solidify their spot. Kemp's probably one of them still in that boat. And then it also shows that, hey, you're only one average season away from being even in a discussion for a trade.
Yep. Absolutely. The always one, I don't know, just as I was watching that back, man, I hope it does. It's the likelihood of it eventuating to the same degree won't be the case, I wouldn't think, but fuck, it just gave me some Eddie Betts vibes back from 2013-14, man. It's like, it's a small forward that just kicks goals, and it's like we've let him go, and it's, I don't know, it's bold, but you just hope it doesn't bite you in the ass, man. You really don't. You really don't.
There will probably come a point next year where we say, gee, I always would have been handy today. Or
you just know. You just know there's going to be that game. It's in the wet, and you just need your smalls to fire. And he did for us so many times. But anyway, you got to move on. And like I said, hopefully it doesn't bite us in the ass.
Yeah. So then, what are you grade trade period overall out of 10? And open this up to the chat as well. If you had to rate the entire trade period out of 10, maybe it's hard to do because we haven't seen who we draft yet. But just from what you saw from a trade perspective, Nick Haynes as well, he was obviously a free agent, but yeah, what we got and what we gave up, what do you sum it up as?
No, still great. And I'll give it an A still, because like I said, off the top, anytime you can get a top 3 pick in, and especially in this part of our journey and development as a football club, that's huge. You just got to get the pick right. So on face value, it's an A for me. It's not an A+, but it's an A. And yeah, I mean, we do forget about the Nick Haynes signing. I think that's quite savvy. He's got some football left in him, Nick, I think. And if we can get a year or two out of him, and he can not only play a role, but actually impart some wisdom down back there, it can only help us. So I thought that was a smart pickup. I also think this isn't done. Like, I think we've got 6 list spots open at the moment based on the delistings, Haynes coming in, and the trades. I think we've got 6 open. Pick 3 will obviously be one. I think the 2 Campos, and that's pretty much it for the draft, unless Ben Campo slips past 38. So then you got 3 more spots in the SPP period or rookie drafts, there's some good delisted free agents out there, man, that can play a role as depth. You know, a Brandon Parfitt, obviously Denver Granger Barras. So it's not done yet. Like our list management period for 2024-25 isn't over. So I'm very intrigued to see how we fill those spots out. And obviously Liam McMahon's been spoken about too from the VFL. So, you know, we could easily build out that depth again quite quickly if we're savvy enough with some, you know, low key pickups.
Well, there's 3 guys that are yet to have their fate sealed. Jack Carroll's one of them. Matt Carroll is another one. And Sam Durden is another one. So out of those 3, who do you expect to remain at the club next year?
Well, you'd hope Jack Carroll stays because I think he's right on the cusp. And especially with Kennedy going, he's one I'm looking at next year to go, you've got an opportunity now to really take it by the balls and run with it. So I'm hoping Jack Carroll will sign. Matt Carroll, I don't know if he's been given the opportunity yet. So maybe he gets given a bit of an extension to see how he goes. And then Sam Durden, I don't know. What's he played 2 or 3 games for us in the 2 years?
I think he's played a couple, and I reckon he's gotten injured in both of them.
Yeah, I think you're right. I actually think you're right. So, yeah, I'm a bit indifferent on that one, especially if we sign like a Denver Granger Brass. So yeah, it's at six list spots at the moment, but could easily be 7 or 8 by the time we get to the SPP period. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be very, very interesting.
Yeah. Very much so. So now I want to explore this next phase of the conversation. Well, actually, firstly, I do want to get your thoughts on Dan Houston. Like, where were you when all the talk was happening? Like, were you pro Dan Houston? Were you pro pick 3?
I never wanted to give up more than pick 12. So once it started to get into the areas of pick 12 and a future second, pick 12 and a second, 2 firsts, and they can have him. They can have him. I'm rapt that he wanted to play for us, and that's whatever. That's that hangs over their head now. It doesn't really mean anything at the end of the day. Like, he's gonna be playing his footy in Victoria, but I think they overpaid for a halfback. I think we learned our lesson from previous deals that we've done for overpaying halfbacks potentially, and yeah, we saw what the value was this year, and that's in the draft. So I was happy we stayed away in the end. If we could have got him for, like I said, pick 12 alone, would have been great, a great addition. But at 28 years old, to pay what was paid for him, they're going to look silly. They might push for a flag next year. They might. After that, fuck, the downfall is going to be nice. And just, I know I'm already starting to talk, but it's coming. You look at their list, they are fucked. They are going to be absolutely cooked in a few years, ladies and gents. I promise you. Just bide your time. Bide your time.
Only took you 27 minutes, mate.
It's going to be, it's true. But it'll be the fucking glory days when it happens. It's going to happen. You cannot keep turning over a list like that and expect to be competitive year in, year out. It's unsustainable, especially with where their age demographics are. Anyway, enough about them. Dan Houston, like I said, happy we didn't chase him with what the value was for him in the end.
Yeah. So I saw this chat today between Sammy Edmund and Kane Corns around, I guess the topic that I want to bring up is, you know, list manager making decisions, coach making decisions, and it sort of pertains to Houston obviously had a conversation with Michael Voss. And I am curious around the process of recruitment. So we'll watch this for context.
So with Dan Houston's preference wanting to be Carlton, and we know the reasons for that, the connections to the coach, which he's now on record as saying were part of the appeal, his connections to certain players in that team as well, not putting in the trade request, and we understand the reasons for that because it was always going to be difficult. And in the end, he's happy, of course, to play for Collingwood. But just on the Blues, so when a senior experienced coach like Michael Voss coming into a big year obviously wants an established player, versus the rest of the club in wanting to prepare the club for the future as well, and all the balancing act associated with that. Who should hold right of way?
It's a really interesting discussion, and every club is different. Like, we've seen Craig McRae basically pulling the strings at Collingwood, having the most power over that club.
Can I just say something on that? So he came in here and he sat here at this desk and he told Andy and Gazy, we want players, not picks. Give me players. I think that was actually a part of the strategy from the start at Collingwood United. I don't think him saying that was Collingwood saying, "Oh, okay, all right, we'll pivot now. We won't go there." I think as soon as they made the decisions on all their veterans, they were always going down this. This is a United thing. Now he's the face of it, but I don't think they were.
But
I don't
he'd be
think
pretty
it's like
happy
Carlton.
with it, wouldn't he? Like it'd be
Yeah,
pretty.
well, of course.
A premiership 2 years ago, then you.
But I
you
think
fall
the list
back.
management team were aligned with that. I think
Yes.
once Pendlebury goes on, once Sidebottom, once Howe, all those guys go on, then they're chips in. We know that.
Yeah.
So I think they've been aligned since then. Whereas the Carlton one might have been a little bit different.
So the Carlton one, in terms of how important the coach is in recruiting, and the best example is Sam Mitchell. So Sam Mitchell's flying all over the country to try and sign players, which he can. Michael Voss sounds to me like he's done the same with Dan Houston. Sounds to me like there's a relationship there from when Vossi was at Port Adelaide, and that conversation has been there, and there's a really good relationship. So Vossi's probably doing what he thinks all coaches should be doing, and if you can get an advantage by using a relationship to sign a gun player to help you win next year, that's what you do. But it seems to me like the Collingwood example, they weren't on the same page. So the Carlton list management and Michael Voss, when he's trying to do this recruiting, are going, well, Vossi's sort of almost acting not rogue here, but just didn't have the blessing of the list management crew. Once you're having those conversations with Dan Houston, you need the sign off from the list management that we can actually make this happen.
So just following on from that, and it's a great segue because just to finish off Kane's sentence, I don't think that didn't happen. My picture of things happening was a conversation with Voss and Houston. Are you interested? Yes, I'm interested. Yep, would love you to play for me, or whatever. And then I would only assume a conversation then gets had with Nick Austin, and then I would only assume a scenario comes back saying, okay, we could do this, but this is our maximum that we're willing to give up. And then once that's surpassed, it's all over. So what do you think around the balance of let the list management make decisions and the coach have input?
I think at the end of the day, the decision's left to the list manager, right? So, the coach has to have input. The coach and the coaching staff and whoever they have to give some sort of direction on the type of player that they want for the system that they want to put in place. Now, I can understand why Houston might have been top of Vossi's pile. Good kick coming out from half back, can break lines. We want to be able to transition the ball better from defensive half. It's very simple to understand why Voss was so high, and obviously he's got that relationship with him, right? So in Voss's mind, it's an easy one because it's like I can talk to him, I can convince him to come. All you guys got to do is get the deal done. But at the end of the day, it's not that I think in this case the list manager in Nick Austin and the head coach in Michael Voss were poles apart. I think there was an understanding that we'll get him, but if it's for the right price, otherwise we're sticking to our strategy and we're going with draft. So clearly, and I think everyone remembers when that sliding doors moment came with Houston was when we got pick 3 because it was like, well, clearly we're out, and clearly at that point Austin felt I'm not going to overpay. I can see where this is going. He obviously knew all the conversations that were happening because he was involved with them behind the scenes. Could see where it was going. Cut your losses. Go get a good kid at the draft. And I don't think there's any. I would be shocked if that creates any tension between list manager and coaching staff or head coach. Of course they're aligned. It's not a complete circus. We're a circus, but we're not a complete circus. Fuck.
Yeah. I think that one of the first questions I would like one of the AFL media accredited journos to ask Michael Voss when they're next in a press conference is, did he draw on his experience at the Lions? And, they obviously topped up with Favola, a guy that was available due to circumstance, thinking they were right there in the window. And obviously it goes on to not work out like what they would have hoped. And I do wonder if that experience comes into play for him as well. You touched on something there around the circus. And I think if we look at what happened this year and what's happened over the last few years, I'm going to play a clip here that I found in the archives from a couple of years ago. This was when Steve Silvani left. And less around the words that were said in this video, but have a think about the club as a whole and the state that we were in and the infighting that was happening when you watch this.
Can I just go back? I want to just go back to the departure and from Carlton itself, because obviously you had that really strong link yourself and Carlton, that love over the years. What hurt you the most about that departure, looking back?
What hurt me the most? Probably when your president has a chat to you and he says, I've fought for you, that the CEO said to him that he felt as though I would sabotage the trade and draft period. And that probably hurt me the most, knowing that, and I hate talking about myself, to be perfectly honest, but when you've played for a club for 17 years and I think you put your body on the line and supported the club all your life, for a person to actually say you'll sabotage the trade and draft period, and really for me, an outsider that's come into the club and really doesn't know a lot about the club and really doesn't know a lot about me, that was probably the most disappointing out of everything that happened.
So that is, I can hear the passion and emotion in your voice, and I've known you a long, long time. So, and I know you don't like talking about yourself. You're very private and quiet. But so for the Kane Little, I'm assuming you're talking about here, suggested to Mark Leduchet that you would sabotage the trade and draft period if you stayed.
Yep.
And did you address that with him?
I think Mark was strong with Kane, that he backed me in. He put things into place during that trade period that, and Chris Judd was heavily involved in it, and that's what it was. So, he put certain things into play that I guess I didn't have to have any further contact with Kane.
What comes to mind when you sort of see that and you see what he said there and you think about the state of the club and Sauce has to be here and Kane Little's got to be there and over list management decisions and opinions and egos and whatnot and what you see now?
That was a throwback. I was like, I almost forgot about that until you reminded me today around how awkward that got during those years. No, clearly we're in a better spot. And this is what I'm saying. That's clearly not happening. That's clearly not what happened with Houston. There was open communication. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out that the relationship between Voss and Austin is obviously strong enough that they can have those discussions, the trade fall through, and then none of this eventuates after the fact. So culturally, we're definitely in a much better spot. But Sauce it's a funny one for me. I love him. I really do. I'd love him back at the club someday because, clearly that family, and obviously Jack's still there at the moment, but clearly that family means a lot to us as supporters. But I don't know. It's a weird one, man. It's like an unspoken breakup these days. We don't really reflect on it too much. And it's when he reared his head and started poking the bear with Brodie Kemp, I went, oh yeah, I remember being on this side of the fence for that. And he's a funny one, Sauce.
Yeah. No, look, it was just interesting to me. Now, obviously, there's a bit of a difference there because we're talking about list manager and CEO. But yeah, Wildy, spot on. Overall, we're talking about a dysfunctional football department. Interference here, and then that just came up. I've been doing some digging, mate. I'm in my investigating era at the moment. And the thing that hit me the most was, wow, look at how things are dealt with then and now. The Matt Kennedy one, opinion might be split. Should we, shouldn't we? Sure, cool. But you look at what Matt Kennedy says in the public and you look at what Carlton says, it was pretty aligned. Both messages, dealing in good faith for the most part, as much as you possibly could. So I did see that and I did think, wow, that's an improvement, less dysfunction in that area.
Oh, definitely. And I even think the way that, that we've dealt with this interim CEO, Graham Wright, Brian Cook, partnership for next year as well. That's not something we would have ventured down 5 or 6 years ago. I can guarantee you. So clearly we're in a much better place culturally.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's too early to get too excited. That's for sure. Although I'm, well, depends what conversation I'm having.
No, I'm not doing it. No. They need to. It needs to get to round 20, and we are steamrolling for me to get up and about next year. Hold me to it. Anyone watching, fucking no context blue abroad can clip it as well, so it's out there for everyone to see. I will not get it's gonna fuck me. I won't get. I'm gonna say it. I will not get up and about until round 20 if we're steamrolling teams next year. Until then, stay calm.
How about this? I'm with you. I think next year will be the year of you and evolving into that version. And I think it'll be like get up and about. Just maybe we need to stop declaring them as premiership winners. But it's hard when the generation of before who were so cynical say, "Oh, this is it." Like you'll know it when it clicks. How can you not?
You know what? That's what got me this year. It was the Geelong game. It was my dad. It was Jules' dad. It was Rocco. It was everyone. They all went for unanimously for the first time. They all went, "This is it. I've seen it. I've seen it before. This is it." And I went, "All right, I can let my guard down. Like we're gonna win it. Like this is the best." Oh my god. Anyway, not next year.
Until next year. So, so that's that. Now I've started doing again as part of this whole investigating era. I went back and looked at some of our trades that we've done because some times past it's really hard. I mean, to be honest, it's hard to grade some of them now because it's only been 2 or 3 seasons. But I did look at Adam Cerra and the deal that we did back then with Freo in 2021. So it was pick 6 and a future third, which the future third was eventually used in the Jordan Clark deal. But pick 6 to Fremantle for Adam Cerra. Pick 6 then became pick 8 because Sam Darcy and Nick Dacos were father-son bids and whatnot. Freo end up drafting Jai Amos. I'll play one more clip, and this was what Nick Austin said about Cerra and the deal. And
yeah, look, we to be fair, negotiations started prior to Monday opening. The moment Adam nominated us, sort of mid last week, David Walls and I were able to catch up and sort of put our flagpoles in the ground, so to speak, and work on where we sat and slowly work our way to some middle ground, which by Monday, most of those discussions have been had. So we're able to progress it quite quickly in the last 24 to 48 hours, especially once they did that deal with the Gold Coast for pick 19. It sort of opened up a few other things for them with Jordan Clark. So those deals were linked in a little way, and things were able to move quite quickly overnight, Tuesday and into Wednesday morning.
How super can he be for you, Nick?
Yeah, look, we're really excited. He's obviously was a high pick himself, and he's hardly missed. I think he's played 76 odd games in the 4 years at Fremantle. So we see him as a 10-year player for us in the middle of the ground and really complement what we've got. The ability to run both ways and use the ball really well. I think his kicking inside 50 especially is a highlight of his game. So we're really excited with what he can bring.
So the full video is out now. You can check it out after the show tonight. It goes for about, I don't even know. I think 10 or 11 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. But it's basically
a very digestible period of time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the whole sequence, debates for and against. So it's been 3 seasons. Ultimately, I guess the opinion will be finalized when he retires from the club and we see what happens. But how do you view it so far?
Oh, I don't know. It's an interesting one. I think he was at his best last year, right? I think that's when we saw the absolute best of Ches. And when he was on, it was like he was being. I don't know if anyone remembers. He was being spoken as like All Australian at one point, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, I think he just needs a good run at it. Obviously, we've sent him to Qatar in the off season to look at these soft tissues and these hamstrings and whatever, and hopefully something's uncovered there. But I don't know, when you're getting that many soft tissue injuries as at the age that he's at, I just hope we can turn it around. I hope this new fitness program can unlock something with him, because at his best, there's no doubt he improves our team. No doubt. Yeah. We just didn't see it this year, and it was very, very frustrating because even when he did play and he was healthy, he was almost a detractor in the team at times. And it was frustrating to see because you expect so much out of him, knowing what he can produce. Not what we paid for him in the trade, but knowing what he can produce, because we've seen it. So Hopefully we get Ches 2023 in 2025, because if we do, he's that Rolls Royce in the midfield for us. And clearly they're backing him in by offloading Kennedy as well. Clearly they're backing in the process to go, you're going to play 22 games next year. So let's hope. But I think at the moment it's a bit, I don't know, it's up in the air. It's TBC. You can't really judge it, right? It's
Totally.
hard.
No, totally. It's hard to judge. It's just more of a, how's it going, like, so far. So 22, he plays 18 games. And I remember, I mean, it's his first year at the club. You always give that grace period to sort of settle in. But I thought he did a pretty good job anyway. I think we all remember a couple of big moments, particularly last game of the year against the Pies. Kicks 2 goals, has, what do you have, like 30-odd that game, 27 and 2. 23, as you touched on, great year, 22 games, does his hamstring, halftime against the Pies, subbed out, 20 touches at the half. I thought he had a solid final series. I think the elimination final against the Swans was probably the great one. And then I'll run you through this year, right? So opening round, he plays all the way through till round 4, which was Fremantle. Injured, comes back around 8 for Collingwood. Plays the week after, round 9, out. Then he comes back around 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Collingwood again gets hurt in Collingwood, and then plays in the elimination final. So it just, I think similar to Motlop, it's just like another one who just had one of those years where it just never got going for him. And so brutal. Game of margins. You are, you're almost, it's like it's crazy. You're a 4 to 5 week injury in preseason away from not being at your best, and then you're a 4 to 5 week injury in season from that having a total say about your season as well. Like it is really difficult to be healthy all year in this game, and I guess that's why we've gone a different direction with high performance and strength and conditioning, because collision, we have to cop it. They happen, and we can't do anything about it. But it's the repeat soft tissue that are clearly hurting us the most.
Yeah, Dan banged on about it all year on the podcast about, your best ability is availability, and we didn't have it from the start of the year.
Yeah,
simple. Like we had 14 on the injury list halfway through, and then we had 21 at another stage in the year by the end of the year. So yes, collision, you cop ACLs, you cop, that is what it is. But I don't know, something had to give. Clearly, thankfully, it has. But and then hopefully this new program just gets a few of these boys back to where they should be, and quickly. That's the other thing. Like, these things take time as well, right? Like, the new fitness program isn't just going to kick in and be a miracle overnight. Like, it could. We don't know how long it could take to fix. I won't say fix. I won't be harsh, but to readjust certain weaknesses in the previous program. Right? That's not going to happen overnight. There's these players' bodies have to get used to a new strength and conditioning elements that are going to be added or taken away, and it's honestly, next year's just it's going to be very, very interesting. I've said that a few times tonight, but yeah, I think that I'm more going in with a curiosity about what we look like next year than anything else at this point.
Yeah. Hey Shane, welcome to YouTube membership, mate. Yeah, Joe, it is a good point. So when we first signed Rob Innes, my mind, because I was still like, I am still pretty angry, but I'm also, moving on, get over it. Footy season ends, and you don't want to be stuck getting angry. I fucking let it slip from 11 and 4. Okay, but my mind went to new fitness coach. What does that mean? Oh, well, he needs time. He's got to, adjust relationships. He's got to learn these players. They've got to learn their bodies. He's got to, I guess, push him in his own way. I don't know if Andrew Russell hands over his folder of information and says, here's what is in my...
Fucking hell.
We just... Actually, that is very good by you.
Thank you.
That is very good by you. But the point is, I just get this feeling already like it's going to take time.
Yeah, it is. And this is what everyone needs to just prep themselves for, because the worst thing that could happen next year is not that we go backwards. It's that we go backwards and we all lose our fucking mind. And then all of a sudden it's a full reset again when we don't need to. I know it's so it's hard. We've been patient for so long, but this is a different patience now. This is a patience knowing that if you stick by the process, it will happen. We just don't know when. Like, we just can't go back to that old mentality of, oh, well, we've dropped backwards, so sack the coach, sack whoever, sack him, sack her, sack whatever. Like, you just have to stick fat at this point, as hard as it is. We've got to see the 5 years out at a minimum. At a minimum.
Do you think because there's been so much talk around, Dan Houston and like acquisitions, that we've forgotten that what does a healthy list do to this club?
Oh,
like, how
yeah.
many more games, in your opinion, do you think we win? I did ask this a few weeks ago to the guest. It might have been, can't remember, but let's just say, full health and 10 players play every game as opposed to 3. How many more wins do you think that is from the 13 this year?
We make top 4. I mean, this is the thing. This is how close we were, right? So as disappointing as the season was and how much it fell apart, this is how close we were. And I can pick a number of games. Sam Berry, Adelaide, we had that game in control. Should have won. Agree?
Totally.
You're up against St Kilda. I don't care who's out there. I don't care if we've got our reserve squad out there. We had that game nailed until 12 seconds to go. That's 2 more wins. You could pick one more. You could easily
pick Dacos stoppage, first Collingwood
game.
game.
The Nick Dacos stoppage. That's another one. You can pick that one out of the hat. There are a number of games you can look at to go. We were and this is what I said at the start of the show, marginal from being top 4, but it looks like we're so far off. So even if you have 3 or 4 of your top players available for 18 to 20 games rather than 8. You telling me that's not going to make a difference next year? Surely. We just can't end up in a spot again where we've got an injury list of fucking 20. It's unheard of. And then to make finals still, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So there's a lot of upside there, clearly. Clearly we're still a contender. Clearly we're still going to be there. As long as, 1, they keep it on up here for long enough, and 2, physically we're okay. I think that's it. It's just whether or not we can do it. We haven't seen this. I don't know. It's still the unknown with us, whether or not we can get through a full year. We just haven't put together a full year in so many facets, but physical health and our mental side of the game have just not been able to put it together for 27 weeks. It's what it takes.
Yeah. So that's that. I now want to turn the attention to a really uncomfortable conversation to finish things off. And that is the GWS thing that happened and the reaction. And I've observed a lot. I've read a lot. I've watched a lot, and I've listened a lot. And I guess I have a few questions. Well, firstly, what's your take? Do you have a take?
I've got a take. Yes. Clearly, they should have known better. Number one, I don't know. I don't know. What do you expect when you've got 20-something-year-old footy players earning 6 figures? They don't care. They don't think. These players aren't they're not. A lot of them aren't that smart. We're not. You know what I mean? So you're going to get this from time to time, but clearly they should still know better. But at the same time, I am always in the camp of, and this isn't just for the AFL, this is a blanket statement from me. Once administration, whether it be government, associations, whoever it is, step in to areas and try to govern or legislate or reprimand or restrict on behalf of another entity, you're in dangerous territory. And I think it should have just been left up to the club. I think whatever the ramifications needed to be should have been left up to the club. It's a club function. Would we have even known about any of this if the AFL didn't step in and make the statement that they made? Who knows? It may never have come out and the club would have dealt with it internally and we move on. But I don't know. I've never been a fan of parent entities or governments or whoever, governors of whatever, stepping in to reprimand things when clearly it can be left up to another party.
Okay. So I have a few questions, and these are just general questions. And I understand if you scream at humans, you rarely get them to click and say, oh yeah, actually, that was wrong. So I have a few questions. The first one is, so the AFL holding the Giants players to account for simulating rape, among other things. What is woke about that?
No, nothing at all. I mean, and this is the thing. I think the penalties still need to be handed down. Like I think that you get what you deserve in that regard, right? So there's obviously the two layers, right? So I spoke about the governing side of it and where it should have come from, and I think the Giants should have stepped in a lot earlier to say it's not on. Like that's not what we stand for. That's not our culture. This is ridiculous. Like that is absolutely vulgar. There's no place for that. So the reprimand that they got in the end, you get your just desserts. You know, that's in today's society, that is not acceptable. It's just not.
My other question was, what's funny about it?
No.
And which boys, being boys, letting off steam, do that? I don't know any that do that personally. And I mean, is there anyone here in the chat that has ever simulated rape in front of their mates while they all cheer for you?
It's actually crazy to even say. Like, to hear you even say it is like, what?
I would just like someone who maybe has the perspective, who has done that and thinks it is funny, to maybe come on, and happy to share the link and tell me what's woke about holding firm against that, and what's funny about it. Why should the AFL step in? What do you mean? They work for the AFL. The AFL is the governing body. It's like saying, why should the company that I work for not step in when you work only for a specific branch of the company? So there's that. I just find where, look, the fact that we're talking about it is, I think, an important part in the education of the matter. I think the reaction from general public is probably what that frightened me a bit the most. And hey, I'm all for anti-authority. I'm all for pushing back. But I think there was this really weird, evil hiding behind woke. And, the AFL's woke because they stepped in to hold the players to account. That really got me going. And then the point around, yeah, they are dumb, idiot footballers. Yeah, they are. But they also have access to more education than the regular person does, unless you work for a company that does these, sessions because your work puts them on. It's not an excuse for them. And then there's the other argument of, but they were just having a few drinks. Well, they weren't having a few drinks when they thought of the costume ideas, thought of the skits, went out and purchased the costume, maybe bought it online, maybe waited a few days for it to arrive, got to the function, then started drinking. So it's so premeditated into a sober mind. And the reaction pushing back and trying to impliedly justify it as the boys are being boys is cooked to me. Then there's the other argument of, but the Geelong Cats did it when Jimmy Bartel and Mitch Duncan dressed up as Ricky Nixon and the St Kilda schoolgirl. Okay, well, let's look back at that time. 2011, Andrew Demetriou's a CEO. That's the definition of the fucking boys club that you're all complaining about, the corrupt boys club. Now you've got an administration that's trying to challenge that, and you're still complaining that things are woke. Like, your people who are actually against this are so hypocritical, it's not even funny. And I don't know, maybe I just think the best of everyone. I'd like to, but I just don't know what is funny about what happened. Which boys are doing that in general life as a joke? And what is woke about the AFL holding them to account for their behavior? And if it happened to our boys and those were our boys that are doing it, wow. Like the foundations of my love for the club, I'd be rocked, mate.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. You'd be shattered if it was your club. You would. You absolutely would. Again, I think our club would step in a lot earlier. That's what the most disappointing thing for me in all of this is GWS's reaction to it. Why are you not dealing with this earlier? Why, how, not even that. How did you let it go ahead at a function? How did you not stop that at that point and go, fuck, this is a bit much, boys, as a club? Like, to even let it get, so you've got, and you hit the nail on the head when you said this narrative around boys will be boys. No, like, it's not an excuse or a reason for anyone
dead
to do
shit
that.
behavior. It's
rubbish.
it's like, it's just dead shit behavior. And why shouldn't we correct our fucking society and our behaviors? Why shouldn't we do that? You know, so many people haven't lived outside of Australia, and it fucking shows. It shows. It really, it comes up really clearly. Who still lives with mum and dad, and who hasn't left Australia and been to a country with real fucking issues?
No, that's a good point. That is good. But also not even countries that have real issues, just how other countries operate. Like, this doesn't fly even in the UK. Like, you do this in the UK as a footballer, forget about 3-game suspensions. Like, the penalties handed down would be far more, whether it's from, again, the league, association, or a club. You'd be completely fucked. Completely. Your career's gone for shit like this. So,
yeah,
I don't know. You would hope that they learn from it. Whether your opinion is that the AFL shouldn't have stepped in and that it should have been left to the club, or like, whatever side you sit on there. Obviously, Tez and I have two very different positions on that. But at the end of the day, the end point is there's reprimand for shit like that. You can't expect to get away with simulating rape. Like, it's ridiculous. And I don't understand. For me personally, I don't understand, because I don't know. I don't understand how you'd get to a point in your mind as any of those players thinking this will fly. We're good.
The other thing, and Chichio, I'm seeing your comment here. It was a private function. The staff member is a disgrace. The fact that that is even a registered thought in someone's mind, like, I don't know. I'd love you to come on and explain that. You're more than welcome to come on and tell me everything about that. Maybe educate me on what I'm missing. The fact that it should stay private and no one should know that it happened is even more scary to me. Like, at least now it's out in the open. Like, it's fucking awful. Cool. Like, you know, they're being punished and they'll come down hard on them, and, you know, hopefully it shakes them a bit and they all learn from it and, like, you know, really never do it again. But what do you mean? It's a
and you know what? Even in this discussion, you changed my tune a little bit on keeping it private, because it doesn't make sense. Like, even if GWS did hit it on the head and they kept it internal and they dealt with it internally, like, at the end of the day, why shouldn't that be used as an example going forward? You know, it absolutely should. So
this is the thing.
It's not on.
I'd love someone to come on camera, look down the camera, and explain to me what was funny about any of it, and what is woke about holding them to account. I need to be educated. So it just cooked me a little bit, and it's an uncomfortable conversation. And fortunately or unfortunately, the next news story will come in, you know, next week, and the next thing will come, and that's life. We're in this cycle of constant information and things that are happening in the world, and things get forgotten about until they get repeated, until we're reminded of them. And that is, again, that's fortunate and unfortunate. But yeah, it was just cooked to me, and more so the reaction by people, like our people, Carlton people, where I was like, whoa. Okay.
And there is a way to have a discussion about it. There is a way to, you know, see eye to eye on an issue like this, but to think it's funny or to think it's okay to simulate, I'll say it again, to simulate rape in any circumstance. Come on. Like, what example are we setting for anyone by doing that? So it is sad. It's sad. And unfortunately, the thing that's hard to wrap your head around with any of these sort of incidents, because they come up all the time. 3 players got suspended, or 4 if you include Clarkson as a coach, suspended or fined this year for homophobic slurs. You think after the first one, people would learn. No. There will always be people that get it wrong. These boys got it wrong.
Yeah. And I genuinely hope that they, fix it. And I believe they will. I believe they've got the tools at the AFL and at their clubs with the programs that they all have available to them to make sure it never happens. Now, is it going to happen again? Likely. Yeah, likely, because the new cycle of kids and younger players will come through, whatever. But
there's kids at that. There's kids at that function, right? First year players, second year players. They're learning off guys that have been in the system for 4, 5, 6 years, and they think that that's okay now.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it just I've never? I'll ask you, Tez, because I know you've been around footy culture a bit more than me. Like I played a little bit when I was a junior, but not really a lot. But is it just it's so ingrained, not to this extent, but to have a laugh or at the expense of certain topics or things to find that in footy in general?
Look, there's dark humor. There's one-upsmanship on what's funny. Like that happens. I think real leadership is when someone is willing to stand against what the majority are laughing at and maybe just pull it in. But see, for me, I've met murderers and I've met rapists. I've looked them in the eye, and I've seen I've seen it. I've seen the darkness, right? And that's just through my life experience, through work, and what I used to do. So like I've seen the darkness of where it gets to. And clearly not everyone has. And clearly not everyone has experienced this topic. I would be shocked if those who are saying it was a private function, they're having a laugh, all good, don't worry about it, you're all woke. I would be shocked if those same people had simulated rape for a laugh in their life. I would be shocked.
Yeah, no. And if you have, take a look at yourself.
Yeah, it was, I really wanted to be clear on everything coming out because, like, obviously it was drip fed. Information was drip fed a little bit, and reactions came straight away. And I get it. We push back on authority. Twitter's now this LinkedIn for non-professionals and everyone who want to position themselves in a certain way. So I get it, and I hope that this conversation's been somewhat challenging to listen to.
Everyone can do themselves a favor by getting off Twitter tomorrow. Number one, honestly, that is the most rubbish platform going around, and not because I was plastered all over it, but just because of the way that algorithm is set is atrocious, absolutely atrocious in terms of what it feeds you. Number one, but I think you summed it up pretty well, Tez. Changed my mind on a couple of things as we went through. I think I was definitely much more in the camp of the AFL shouldn't have stepped in, but what you're saying is correct. They need to, as a league, you need to stand for something, right? So, and to the AFL's credit, they have been very consistent with this sort of stuff all year, since those homophobic slurs started earlier in the year as well, in terms of bans and fines and hefty penalties. And now this, that you can't say they're not consistent. So clearly they are standing for what they want to be going forward, and good on them. Changed my mind absolutely during that debate. And for anyone watching, it's actually okay to have a discussion between two people that might come at it with the same outcome at the end. It has to be reprimand, but from two different angles. And for one person to then step aside, this is how a discussion happens. You step back and go, you know what, mate, you actually made a fair few points. I'll take that on board. That's a debate. That's a discussion. Not you're fucking wrong. You're this, you're that, you're woke, you're a Nazi, you're this, whatever. Like, that's not how you have a discussion at all. So if anything else, I hope this has taught people how to actually discuss topics like this without getting so emotional and so pent up that in the end of it, it just becomes this circular argument of absolutely nothing.
Yeah. So this won't be the last difficult conversation that we have on this channel. It's not the first. Humans are flawed. The world is run by humans. Therefore, the world is just flawed. And I accept that. But I do think there has to be some effort to better ourselves as much as we can throughout all of our mistakes and all the mistakes that we see. So look, that's that. Joe, thanks for joining. Thanks for talking about a really difficult topic to talk about. I really appreciate that, and it's good to see your face, mate.
Good to be back. Anytime. Difficult conversations. They're good fun. They're good.
Yeah, good fun. Your movements this week. We don't see you on the Almost Blues Brothers soon, do we?
Not for a long time. We will not be back until 4 weeks out from the season. So nice long off season for us, but I'm happy to come back anytime this off season. It's always a pleasure. So hopefully I'll see you all soon.
Have we done a chat at the G?
No, not for a while. We did. Actually, we did about this time last year. So I think it was almost to the day, I reckon, that we did that chat. So yeah, let's do that.
We're overdue. Ladies and gents, see you throughout the week. If you haven't watched the Adam Cerra video going through the trade and all the bits and pieces around that, here's the link. You can watch it after this. I will see you soon. Go Blues.
Cannolo, it is Sicily. It's definitely a traditional Sicilian dessert. And we want to share exactly this. We want to share a traditional product that can be done with our Australian twist. Cannolo is something that you have to share with your family. Cannoleria try to do exactly that. We try to give a product that you can share with your family, share with your friends. All the important things, it can be happy or can be something sad, it's all around the table. And that's what my grandfather used to say, no matter if you have a little or a lot, food just brings everyone together. You can't go wrong with that. I'm Dario, owner of Cannoleria.